What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to take a look at the top 10 collectible games from fall 2020. Incidentally, this should be going up during my week off, so if there are a couple of news stories I've not gotten to as fast as I usually should, please remember this is going up during an actual week off, my first one in years. We'll be back to normal next week, so you have been warned. If anyone's wondering why hasn't he covered this yet, there's your reason, ladies and gentlemen. Although big news I will absolutely be here for. Now, I am a little bit later on doing this video than usual. Things have been extremely busy. I am sorry. But we're here now, ladies and gentlemen, so we can have a nice little look. One very important thing we need to point out before we get going here. This is pre-Digimon TCG. This is fall 2020. Now, I know that Digimon did have a pre-sale in November, but it didn't really launch until January. Don't expect Digimon on this list. It's not on this list, and it was never going to be. However, keep an eye out for when the spring 2021 list comes out, which should be in the not too distant future, because when that list drops, I'm expecting Digimon to be right up there. I'm expecting it to be a top 5 game, so I am super interested to see how that shakes out. So, let's do what we normally do and take a look at anything that comes out a little bit interesting. Now, the first thing we should probably note is that at the top end, it is exactly what we would expect. The top 3 are Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! They have been for a very long time, and at this stage it looks like they always will be. There was a very brief period, remember, at one point, where Keyforge actually jumped into the top 3 in the hobby channel, not in the mass channel, not overall, but it did very briefly jump up into that top 3 in the hobby channel, but unfortunately Keyforge seems to have dropped off. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. It makes me genuinely sad. But nothing else really comes close, although there is a very good new contender in this list we'll take a look at in a moment. I think Digimon has a genuine chance to be a top 3 game, but that's a question and a discussion for another day. Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! They are the top 3. Now, if we look at the mass channel, that is basically where you're talking big box stores, supermarkets, things of that nature. It's Pokemon. It is always going to be Pokemon. Pokemon owns the mass channel. You shouldn't be particularly surprised about that. The majority of Pokemon's customers, their real target market, is kids. And Pester Power and Mummy going to have a booster pack. Well, although my kids really need to be trying that with Daddy. Mummy is going to be far more willing to say no. I'm not sure how much willpower I'm going to have to tell my kids they can't have Pokemon cards, not after how I now live my life. But if we go over to the hobby channel, it's Magic. And it's going to be Magic. When you go to hobby stores, your friendly local game stores, etc., where the nerds hang out, and that's not an insult, I am one of them nerds, it's going to be Magic. Pokemon is going to be number 1 in the mass channel, and it probably will be from now until the end of time. And Magic is going to be number 1 in the hobby channel, and it probably will be from now until the end of time. You should expect this. Overall, we do see it flicking back and forth occasionally, but right now it's Pokemon, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. And I know that there have been times where Magic have been number 1 overall on this list, but you shouldn't expect that anytime soon. Pokemon have been on an explosion over the past couple of years, and any hope Magic really had of being number 1 overall has gone away for the time being with Pokemon's absolute explosion. And again, all I'm doing here is looking at and analysing the data. It's from ICV2. I don't think I've actually said that yet, although there would have been a note on the screen at the start. That website's awesome. You should check it out regularly. I very much do. I'm using their lists because they put them together and I don't have time to. Those dudes are awesome. I'm not dissing Magic. I am not saying anything against Magic whatsoever. I think Magic is a great card game, and if I had the time and the money, I absolutely would be playing it. I think it's brilliant. However, it's not Pokemon. And that's the only negative thing you can really say about Magic, is that it's not Pokemon. It really is as simple as that. It is a great game, it has a great following, and you can make all the arguments you like about Magic has more real players or anything along those lines, and that is fair. I don't know how exactly you measure that, but if you want to make those arguments, I have no real issue. But let's be super clear, Pokemon at the moment is the #1 TCG, and it's not even close. And the only real way to measure success of TCGs is in sales, and Pokemon is going to be #1 for a while. So what else do we see on the list? Well, as I alluded to a moment ago, and this is one thing that makes me really kind of sad, Keyforge isn't on the list. Now, Keyforge was #7, if we go back to fall 2019. It was then not on the list in spring 2020, and it's not on the list in fall 2020. Now, one thing that must be noted is that Keyforge went dark for a little while. There was a big gap between releases. We've got Dark Tidings now, which has recently just come out. So it's going to be interesting to me to see whether Dark Tidings might have pushed Keyforge back onto the list. They went away for a little while. Keyforge went very, very quiet. But on my channel, Keyforge videos are not doing the business they used to do. It's not on this list like it used to be. This does make me a little bit worried about Keyforge. I don't know what's going to happen to the future of Keyforge, but I do know that when there's long gaps between releases, sales are falling drastically, and there's a lot less interest on channels like mine. That is not usually a great sign for a game moving forward. I am not saying that Keyforge is on the way out. I do not have that information, but I am saying it is fair at this stage to start wondering what's going on and whether Keyforge is a long-lasting game. And it makes me genuinely sad to say that. I adore Keyforge. I covered it from the very beginning. I showed you the other day, I have got custom Wassy Plays Keyforge decks that Asmodee made me. I've bought the RPG book. I adore Keyforge. I want Keyforge to be super successful. But the fact of the matter is, there are signs at the moment which we should take as slightly worrying. Now, there are a couple of others that have fallen off the list since spring 2020, those being the Transformers TCG and Star Wars Destiny. That shouldn't really surprise anyone. Those games have been discontinued. And I love Transformers. I think it's a great game. I covered that from the beginning to the end. I played that pretty much obsessively from the beginning to the end. It's one of my favorite games ever. I love that game. I did exclusive reveals. I bought basically every product. I was in on that game hard. But the game ended. It's not going to be on the list. Similarly, Star Wars Destiny. Now, I started getting into that right as the game ended, so, you know, cheers for that. But I like Star Wars Destiny. I think it's a cool game. I didn't get as into it as I liked and I wanted to, but I do think it's a very cool game. I'm sad to see it go, but it was never going to be on the list because, well, it's over. The game's over. Another one that makes me a little bit sad is that Final Fantasy has dropped off the list. It was #7 last time around in spring 2020. It's not there in fall 2020. What I will say is, however, that Final Fantasy, unlike something like Keyforge, has never really been on the list. Final Fantasy rarely pops up on these top 10 lists, so I really wouldn't worry too much about it. It flicks kind of up and down occasionally, but I wouldn't worry too much. Final Fantasy is run by a team over at Square Enix, which are very, very into the game. It's never really been a big top 10 game. Square Enix own the license, which is a huge deal. I'm not worried at all for Final Fantasy. It's never been the most popular TCG, but it's ticking along nicely, and I am happy. Honestly, the big story on the fall 2020 list is the emergence of Flesh and Blood. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, Flesh and Blood is a card game I've not bought into. Part of the reason is it released around about when I was getting super hyper into Digimon, and Digimon has taken my time and money. When Flesh and Blood launched, I didn't have the time or money to really invest into a new card game, which is genuinely a little bit sad because all the reports I've heard are very, very strong. It is #5 in the hobby channel, and it is coming in at #5 overall. And what I'm going to tell you is this: hold your horses. new games tend to debut very high. I told you that, in spring 2019, Keyforge was number 3 in the hobby channel, and it was number 4 overall. In spring 2019, Keyforge was crushing. However, that one fell off pretty hard. Flesh and Blood has had a fantastic start, and that is wonderful. But let's hold off for a minute saying that it's going to be some super successful game. It's had a great start, and that is a great sign, but let's not assume it's going to stay here forever. Dragon Ball Super, still hanging on nicely, number 6. It was number 6 last time, which was a little bit of a jump from previously. So that's a really good sign from Dragon Ball Super. It's kind of chilling. Vanguard has gone and fallen from number 5 to number 7. It's doing fine. Vanguard, again, is not a real top-tier game in terms of sales. And again, I need to stress that really strongly here. We are talking about sales. I am not making judgments on how much I love the game, except where I'm explicitly saying how much I love the game. We are talking about sales. Vanguard had a nice little spot at number 5 there for a little while, which was lovely. But Vanguard isn't really a top 5 game. Dragon Ball Super isn't looking like a top 5 game, but then again, Flesh and Blood doesn't really seem like it's going to stay as a top 5 game. Like I've said, the top 3 are absolutely set, and to be fair, D&D Icons of the Realms has been in at number 4 for a while now, so maybe that's got a little bit of staying power. That's less of a card game though, so it's not something we're talking about very much at all, but it's there, so that's kind of cool. And outside of that, it's pretty much what we would expect. There are a bunch of games that do tend to hang around at the lower end, like Weiss Schwarz. There's no huge surprises really here. A lot of the bottom end of this list tends to kind of flick around here and there. The real talking points here are that Keyforge is still not on the list. Transformers and Destiny have dropped off because they've been discontinued. And Flesh and Blood has come in at number 5, which is a huge start. But again, be very wary of big starts. They don't always last. We've been looking at these lists for a little while now, and we've seen plenty of games debut super high and then drop off fairly quickly. For me, I am super interested to see where Digimon debuts on this list. We're going to find out in a month or two, which is going to be awesome. Like I've said, I'm a little bit late doing this, but we're here now, gosh darn it, and that's the main thing. But I am really interested to see what happens there. For now, I want to know what you think about all of this. I want to know which of these games is your favourite. I want to know which of these you think are going to be doing better in the future. And I want to know which of these you think are going to fall off. Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at Lawasi. That's where we talk about all kinds of card games, like a bunch of the ones on the list. And do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wassy Plays.